All right, do me a favor. Just close your eyes for a second.
Now, I'm going to say a word, genius. Who popped into your head? I'd bet almost anything it's that famous picture, right? The old guy, the crazy white hair, Albert Einstein. I mean, his face is everywhere. T-shirts, posters, you name it. He's the icon. But here's the thing. For the next few minutes, I want you to totally forget about that poster.
Because the real story, it is so much more complex, and honestly, way crazier than the myth. This isn't going to be some dry physics lesson, I promise. This is the story of a rebel, a total outsider who managed to rewrite the entire rulebook of the universe.
I mean, get this. Did you know his own teachers thought he was slow? Or that after he died, his brain was, stolen? And how about this one? The guy was a passionate pacifist, hated war, but he's also the person who accidentally helped kickstart the atomic bomb. See what I mean? Let's get into it.
Okay, so first up, let's talk about the rebel patent clerk. Yeah, you heard that right. This is his underdog origin story, and trust me, it is not what you'd expect.
So, young Albert. He was no child prodigy, not even close. In fact, his parents were genuinely worried about him. He didn't even speak in full sentences until he was about 4 years old. That's pretty late. And in school, oh man, he was a total nightmare for his teachers. But see, it wasn't because he was dumb. Not at all. It was because he just couldn't stand the rigid rules and all that rote memorization. His brain was already buzzing with questions about why things were the way they were, not just memorizing what the book said. It got so bad that one of his teachers actually told him, to his face, "You will never amount to anything." Wow. Can you just imagine being that teacher now?
And you know what? That reputation totally stuck with him. After he graduated, not a single university would give him a job. No teaching, no research, nothing. So he had to take this super boring, mundane job. He ended up as a patent clerk, a third-class one at that, in Bern, Switzerland, just sitting at a desk all day looking at other people's inventions.
But here's where the story gets good. While he's sitting at that boring little desk, in his downtime, he's secretly wrestling with the biggest questions in the entire universe. And that brings us right to his miracle year, 1905. This is how a humble patent clerk completely turned science on its head.
Okay, you really need to grasp the scale of what happened next. In 1 year, one single year, at just 26 years old, Einstein publishes four groundbreaking papers. And remember, he's not in some fancy university lab with tons of resources. He's doing this in his spare time. And these papers, they didn't just add to science. They fundamentally changed our entire understanding of reality.
So one of the biggest ideas came from his theory of special relativity. Before him, everyone, and I mean everyone, including the great Isaac Newton, thought time was, constant, like a giant cosmic clock that ticked at the same speed for everybody, everywhere. Einstein just comes along and says, nope, you're all wrong. He showed that time is relative. It's like this flexible fabric that can literally stretch and slow down the faster you move. Mind-blowing, right? And get this, from that same miracle year comes probably the most famous equation in all of history. E equals mc squared. It looks so simple, right? But what it represents is just terrifyingly powerful. You've got E for energy, m for mass, and then c squared. That's the speed of light, which is already a huge number squared. What this little equation unlocked was the secret of the universe. That a tiny, tiny speck of mass holds an unbelievable amount of locked-up energy. It's the reason stars shine, and it's also the secret behind the atomic bomb.
But Einstein? Oh, he wasn't even close to being done. He had an even bigger fish to fry, gravity. And to do that, he had to go up against the undisputed king of physics himself, Sir Isaac Newton. So yeah, this next part is all about bending the very fabric of space and time.
So for 200 years, everyone just accepted Newton's idea of gravity. It's this mysterious force, right? A pull that just exists. But after this grueling 10-year struggle with some insane math, Einstein came up with something way, way stranger. He basically said, gravity isn't a force at all. It's what happens when huge things, like the sun or the earth, literally bend and warp the fabric of space and time.
Here's the best way to picture it. Think of a trampoline. Now put a heavy bowling ball right in the middle. What happens? It creates this big dip, a curve in the fabric, right? Okay, now roll a little marble nearby. It's not going to go in a straight line, is it? Nope, it's going to follow that curve made by the bowling ball. That's gravity. The Earth is just a little marble, rolling around in the huge curve that the sun makes in space-time.
Now, this was a totally wild theory, but here's the cool part. You could actually test it.
And in 1919, they did. During a total solar eclipse, astronomers watched as the light from faraway stars literally bent as it passed by the sun, exactly like Einstein predicted. The news just exploded everywhere. He was right. And just like that, boom, he became a global superstar overnight.
But with that kind of fame and the incredible power his discoveries unleashed, well, there was a dark side. This next chapter is all about that. Fame, war, and a whole lot of regret.
You see, for all his genius in figuring out the universe, his personal life was a complete mess. He was a really difficult and unfaithful husband to his first wife, Mileva Maric, who, by the way, was a brilliant physicist herself. It gets worse. He actually gave her a list of cruel, demanding rules about how she had to behave just to live in the same house with him. It just goes to show, this was a man of some deep, really troubling contradictions.
And those contradictions, they were about to play out on the world stage. Because then came the rise of the Nazis in Germany. Einstein, being a Jewish intellectual, had to flee to America for his life. Now remember, this is a man who was a devoted pacifist. He hated war, hated violence. But he was absolutely terrified that Hitler's scientists would build an atomic bomb first. So he made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He signed a letter to President Roosevelt, basically pushing the U.S. to start its own atomic research program.
That letter was one of the key things that kicked off the Manhattan Project. And then, in 1945, when the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Einstein was just devastated. He's reported to have just said, "Woe is me." Can you imagine? The man who championed peace had played a part in creating the most destructive weapon humanity had ever seen.
All right, so Einstein passed away in 1955, but his story doesn't end there. Nope, there's one final and honestly kind of creepy twist to all this. It's all about the hunt for the secret of his genius and the very strange places that hunt led.
So Einstein was very clear. He wanted to be cremated. He didn't want people turning his grave into some kind of shrine. But the pathologist on duty, a guy named Thomas Harvey, did something just unbelievable. He stole Einstein's brain. Without permission, just took it. For the next several decades, this guy kept the brain in a jar, sliced it up, and mailed pieces to scientists, totally obsessed with finding the physical source of genius. And after all that time, all that searching, what did they find? The big result? Absolutely nothing special.
And that, right there, leads us to a whole new definition, doesn't it? The secret to his genius, it wasn't hidden in some weird fold in his brain. It turns out genius isn't really about biology at all. It's a mindset. It's about having this boundless, relentless, almost childlike curiosity about everything. And that, I think, is his real legacy. Albert Einstein wasn't just some guy who was good at math and came up with famous equations. He was the person who taught all of us to question everything, to never just accept things as they are, to question the very basics that we all take for granted, like time and space. So after hearing this whole story, the rebel kid, the brilliant clerk, the flawed husband, the haunted pacifist, the complete, complicated man, I've got to ask you, what's the biggest lesson you're taking away from his incredible life?